3. Travel and Things, in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences, present In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and my guest today, joining me after his recent birthday trip to Madagascar, is none other than Lee Gutteridge, the author of a brand new book called Droppings, Dung and Scats of Southern African Wildlife. Lee, firstly, happy belated birthday. Welcome to the show. And what a lot of shit.
Indeed, absolutely. There's more shit than you know.
Indeed, there is. Firstly, let's just look at the title of the book, Droppings, Dung and Scats, because I thought that scats was limited to carnivores, yet I see in the book you refer to elephant droppings as scat, also telling us how fast it comes out of its rear end. I never thought I never thought of that.
Watched a lot of poops happening to record that.
Yeah. So what is the difference between those three?
You know, honestly, I found them all cross-referred so many different ways and in so many different books and on so many different reference websites and things. I don't know. I just think it's all kind of vague. We can nitpick over our poop, but I think generally when we talk about droppings, we talk about something like pellets and things like that. Dung is something that fertilizes the ground in a big way, like a buffalo dropping or an elephant. And scats, usually we lean towards predators, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's all pretty interchangeable with the exception of a few very specific designations.
Some years ago, there was another book, a book on droppings, brought out by a different author, and there were no pangolin dropping pictures. And when I spoke to him about it, he said it was because he'd taken all the photographs in the book and he'd never found pangolin poo. So is there any shit that escaped this particular book?
Yeah, there is. I mean, firstly, just with reference to the book you're talking about, I think it was by Kevin, right? Kevin Murray.
Yeah, Scatology.
That was a fantastic. Yeah, that was a fantastic little book. And this is just an idea, hopefully to complement the cool information that he gathered, and to put this into the wild with pictures of the animals that were responsible. And so you can kind of get a sense of how it looks
right
when it's in the field. You know,
yeah.
But yes, so I actually reached out to a lot of different people to get pictures of droppings. As you'll see in the book, there's a lot of people credited. There's a lot of crap photographers out there, and people were super happy to share. But yeah, there's 4 or 5 species that I really would have liked to have had in there. And just even with my reach of nature-interested people, I couldn't find people who had pictures of the droppings. So a bunch just got left out.
Listen, at the end of it, can you tell us what they are, or what they would have been, should they have been in the book? So in case people watching this go, hang on a second, I got a picture of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cape fox is one.
Right.
That's an animal that I've actually never seen in the wild. I've spent so little time in its habitat. Another one would be the black-footed cat, the little meerswiptier, as they call it in Afrikaans. That's another animal that I don't even know if it buries its dung or what it does. I've got no idea. So there's a couple like that honestly, I don't even know where to start finding the dung. But hopefully one day in the future, I'll be on safari somewhere and we'll see the animal defecate and be able to go and photograph and document. So now, who knows?
I know with bird books, there's always pictures of adults or juveniles or sub-adults or molting birds or birds that are in breeding plumage. Did you pick a specific timeline for the poo that is in this book? Did it have to be fresh? Could it be old? How did you quantify that?
So the vast majority of the droppings that I've included were ones that we actually saw produced, or they were in latrines of animals that we positively had the tracks, and it was pretty much unmistakable. the ones that I got from other people, it's a little more difficult to, what is the word, to quality assure. I don't really know, but I tried to be as careful as I could and only gain pictures from people that was super sure of what they were, like lived amongst the animal or had seen that species frequently where they were.
So,
so there's very little choice on a lot of these things, David. I couldn't really say, oh, nothing older than an hour, and and juveniles allowed.
They didn't come with a
Yeah.
sell-by date.
No sell-bys, but but if we were sure of it, then it got included. I've got a lot of pictures that we just weren't completely certain, so many things were excluded, and probably good examples if we were totally sure.
Now, the book is Droppings, Dung and Scats of Southern African Wildlife. It's published by Jacana. They published the other books that you have, and if you've got one, then you should have all of them, because Tracks and Signs of Invertebrates, this taught me an inordinate amount, I must tell you. You don't think to look for invertebrates, birds, tracks and signs. And this one was mammals, tracks and signs. And then there is another book that there seem to be very few copies of, but we'll talk about that a little later. Were there any animals that, and I mean, I know that you've been in the bush for like 30 years, but were there any animals whose scat you sort of went, oh, hang on a second, I didn't know that a leopard tortoise makes a dropping the size of a small house? That in sort of size for size, the droppings were huge.
Yeah, I think the example you just brought up there, I mean, we watched a female leopard tortoise defecating. And then we also realized in the same process why you don't see it as often as you might think. So this large dropping is produced, and as she was producing it, the dung beetles were flying in and taking away their share. So sometimes you've just got to be really lucky and get there before that huge amount of dung is stolen. One of the animals that surprised me the most, not only in respect to its size, was the form of the droppings, was the waterbuck.
Okay.
Just unbelievable. The diversity, I mean, that thing must have about 5 different colons, each with a different function. Absolutely crazy. I saw one female waterbuck right next to my vehicle. I watched her do it. She did a buffalo poop, a huge buffalo poop. It was
really?
It literally just popped up and hit the floor. And if I had not watched her physically deposit that,
you wouldn't have believed
I would have come past and confidently said, oh, look, a young buffalo was here. Because there is so much variation.
Isn't it also the same for gemsbok, that they poo in a sort of a pyramid shape?
Yeah, they do. It's the coolest thing. Particularly the bulls, and I've never observed it with a female. And I guess if we were to look into one of the big mammal reference books, that would give us more information. But the bulls particularly will squat down into almost a sitting position and deposit a beautiful little neat pyramid, a perfect little pyramid of pellets. It's like you look and you kind of go like, did I really see it do that? It's so cool. Springbuck are very similar in that respect. They also do the same kind of thing.
I now have a vision of a gemsbok sitting, making a poo, but reading a newspaper while he's doing it.
That'd be a good cartoon. How's your sketching?
I can speak to my father-in-law. He is a cartoonist, so maybe I'll ask him.
Awesome.
Because that would make a great cartoon. Pardon me.
There is a picture in the dung book of that gemsbok doing that particular position, I think.
Now, when you took this to Jacana, I mean, they did your 3 other books. Did they say, really, you want to go down this road? We're waiting for the feather book that you've promised us for, I don't know, the last 47 years, Lee. You and Kersey. Yes, are you still collecting feathers?
We're still collecting, yeah. We are still collecting. That's a very long process, David. I have a lot of specimens that I need to work through. I think that's going to be another half a lifetime. I don't even know. But yes, Jacana were. I think Carol sort of asked me to repeat it a couple of times because I don't think she realized whether. No, I think I think I've stopped surprising Carol and the team at Jacana.
Mm.
They've kind of gotten used to me and my passion for all things tracking. So, and they know there's a couple of other ones on the way. So we want to build up this into a series covering at least a little bit of everything to do with tracking. So,
Well, then,
yeah,
let's talk
process.
about let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about this particular book. This seems to have come and gone. There's one copy, I think, but
Yeah, you have it.
I have it. I wrote the review
Yeah.
on it. This
Yeah.
was probably
And you
the
know,
most fun I had. And thanks
yeah,
to you for allowing me to do it. Um,
it was good fun.
I suppose we should fill people in that. I think this was 2 years ago. This was an April
Yeah.
Fool's joke that you and I thought up. And the number of people I know that asked you for copies of the book, and it was brought home
Absolutely.
to me when I was at a camp, and the young ranger was saying to me, I've got a couple of days off. I'm going into Housbrate. Lee Gutteridge has a new book out. And I went, oh, what book is it? He said, it's on rocks of Southern Africa and their tracks and signs. And I looked at my wife, who just went, really? I said, should I tell him? And I said to him in all sincerity, you know that the book doesn't exist. It was an April Fool's joke, which I and Lee cooked up. And he went, no, I've seen the review. The review was excellent. I said, I wrote the review.
Yeah. No, it was
Right.
a good one. And I've been asked a few times myself.
So let's get back to this one. This is why I asked you to stop by and chat to me. It is available already. It's been available for a while. I think before you and Kersey went to Madagascar, it was already on the shelves. But it's just
Yeah.
trying to pin you down. That's awkward. And I think the only reason you and I are chatting today is because it will stop me nagging you. And then you can get about your business. You know,
No.
when I chat to authors, and you're no different because this you're required as an author, although there are pictures and all that type of thing. Do you walk into bookstores, and if the book is this way on the shelf, do you then turn it that way? You don't have a picture on the back cover, but you then stand with book in hand, going, "Oh look, another book by Lee Gutteridge. I have to take this home and add it to my collection."
No, I can tell you what I do though. I like just
What
walk
you
into
do
bookshops
do,
and I quickly
what you do,
what
very
I do
clever.
I see that,
Saw
yeah.
what you
You see
did
what I
there.
did there. Yeah. So I do go into the bookshops and just check if they're stocking any of my books.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then I WhatsApp Jacana and go, hey, there's a bookshop. It's here. They don't have it. So yeah.
But because you wrote on the back of the book and you're not sort of front and center, you're not one of those type of guys that did 50-50 and gave away Land Rovers or dung beetles doing things to each other that come naturally to them. You're obviously not that well known outside of the industry that you work in. So you could stand there and page through it and nobody's going to go, hang on a second, that's Lee reading his own book. Maybe we should buy a copy and get him to sign it.
No, there's no danger of that.
Maybe what you should do is print the cover on a T-shirt and go, yes, I am the author.
No, then people will know that I'm really full of crap. So yeah.
Obviously, you and your buddies, when you told them that you were going to do the book, all of those crap type jokes must keep creeping out of the woodwork. The same
Constantly.
ones repeating
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Has anybody come up with something slightly different that you've gone, oh, damn, I wish I'd put that in the book. Maybe I should have put it in the forward.
No, I can't think of anything offhand. I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of puns, a lot of poo-related puns, a lot. Yeah,
I'm waiting for
yeah,
the memes.
yeah.
The other thing that I like chatting to authors about is when you specifically wildlife photographers, and I ask them, do you have a favorite bird to photograph? Do you have a favorite mammal to photograph? So I suppose at the end of the day, I should ask you, do you have a favorite piece of shit that you enjoy taking a picture of?
Um, I really I really enjoy elephant droppings, especially when it's from like a really old animal and it
Mhm.
hasn't broken the food quite a bit. So yeah, I guess that would be my favorite poop to photograph.
Okay.
I
Now,
guess.
Lee, they always say, let's put some myths to bed, perhaps. They always say that an elephant will eat, let's say, marula berries, the fruit of the marula. And often,
Mm.
because their digestion is not great, that fruit will pass straight through, comes out the other end. And they say if you wash it, you can eat it because it's not been touched. Have you ever tried?
I have never eaten the fruit, the pulpy fruit itself that has
Mhm.
passed through an elephant's digestive system because it usually turns the fruit kind of a brown
Okay.
and I feel like it has an effect on it. Look, sometimes it's still green and hard
Yeah.
inside. But I have definitely eaten the nuts from within the pip out
Okay.
of different droppings many, many times
Mhm.
because that nut is incredibly super watertight. So yeah, in all honesty, I
Okay.
have, but the nut part, not the fruit part.
Now, you mentioned
Next question, David.
hey, you've got to think outside the box on this book. The other one was you mentioned dung beetles. I am stunned and amazed at how fast those things will arrive at fresh dung. It's
Yeah,
almost as if when the dung starts coming out, a dinner bell is rung somewhere, and virtually before it hits the ground, those beetles are in there and off with their spoils.
yeah, no, absolutely. It's amazing, especially with something like elephant when we're on foot,
Yeah.
trailing a herd of elephants. Sometimes you'll be walking along and the dung beetles are zooming past you. Like you just hear these little bushveld helicopters going straight past you. And then you like kind of watch around because you're about to walk into
Into a herd or into
a
poop.
poop mine zone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, they're incredibly quick. They get there really fast. And something else that's amazing is that the dung pile becomes an entire ecosystem.
Yes.
Um, much like if you turn over a log lying in the bushveld for 5 years, it's got fungus growing there. There's little predators hunting little herbivores and little fungus eating creatures, and there's all kinds of amazing things happening. And a dung heap is sort of an instant ecosystem. As soon as that dung hits the floor, spiders come in, little lynx spiders and praying mantises and all kinds of amazing little predators get in there and they position themselves to ambush all the small flies and gnats
That are
and
coming in.
midges
Yeah.
and butterflies and all these other things that are going to land on that dropping in the next few minutes. So they have to get there really quick. And I don't know where they wait or how they detect it. I mean, how does a spider, especially in the quantity that we see them, I mean, sometimes it can be 7 or 8 lynx spiders on a
Mhm.
single poop. Like, how close were they? Were they riding the elephant? I mean, how did they get there? Just
You know,
amazing.
I've always said we believe that we're the top of the heap and we're the apex of everything, and we're not. Given half a chance, and forget Bear Grylls and his I can drink urine and leap out of helicopters. Yet at night when you don't see me, I'm sleeping in a hotel and having proper food. Uh, Everything, including now, as you pointed out, the spiders are better at doing stuff than we are, and we
Yeah.
miss. I think Lee, and maybe this is a little off topic, off the topic of your book, but I do believe that it seems to me anyway that some of the reserves are moving away from touting big five constantly and looking at people having a more immersive experience, going on walks instead of on drives, where they can get out on foot and be with somebody like yourself. My wife still talks about that walk that she did with you, 3 hours, and we'd gone about 500 meters, but we learned an inordinate amount. It's not about distance; it's just about learning. And I do believe that that's another aspect of ecotourism or wildlife tourism that needs to be looked at and people made aware and interested in.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, I've heard it for many, many years, though. I hear or I have heard guides go, "Oh, I'm into the small details." But then when he gets out on a walk or she gets out on a walk, there's this route march slog of 12 kilometers, 15 kilometers. The guests come back exhausted and scratched, and they're like, what small details, you know? So yeah, to go on a guided walk, you don't have to go a million miles. You don't have to have the biggest place in the world. Just in a small area, there's so many remarkable things to see.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I'm seeing it more and more with the lodges that there's an interest in this. And I've been teaching small details, as you know, for many, many years with nature guides and trackers. And yeah, to me, that holds a lot more allure than a lion sleeping under a tree, or, you know, or a group of hippos in a pond that are just blowing some water up that people want to tick off. So I think if we get into the small details and the little things, the way the small animals work, what they do, you can make the most incredible safaris. And Kirsty and I, my partner and I, we often joke about the alien movies that you see on television, these science fiction movies. They must have used insects as their inspiration, because the horrors that insects perform on each other and within their world, it's riveting but terrifying at the same time. And yeah, that's probably how half the inspiration of these movies came around. So the little things, the small details
of the mantis family, what they look like, and what they can do to each other. You know, we forget about that. They can come and go, those poor males come and go in the same minute. They mate and then they get eaten. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, you got to be careful you don't lose your head in that environment. You know, speaking of mantises, I actually got pictures sent yesterday, I think, of the droppings of praying mantises.
Are you kidding?
No, I've got I don't know how clearly you'll be able to see it here, but I'm going to try and show you quickly on the screen. But I got sent a photograph. That work? No, not quite.
Yeah. Oh my
praying mantis droppings. Yeah.
You realize, of course, that you are now going to become a repository for pictures of shit.
Yes, I do. It's happening already. Yeah. Whenever anyone takes a really cuck picture, they send it to me now. And people are like, look at this amazing picture of a dog turd that I was like, thank you so much.
I think you better warn Jacana that there may be a volume 2, whether they want it or not.
I don't know if I can handle any more puns.
You mentioned your company. Let's talk a bit about that. What, aside from writing these absolutely incredible and almost required reading, these 4 in particular, that if you go into the bush, I think you need to be carrying these. Forget your water and your snacks. Take the books, and if you just
eat them afterwards.
The paper is biodegradable. You can eat the paper, and you can use it if you have to go to the toilet. You can use this book to wipe your rear end with. So tell me about the company that the company that you keep, and what it is that you offer. And have you already started courses for 2024?
Sure. Yeah, we are busy with a field guide program at the moment, myself and some colleagues. We've already had one group out at the Makalali Reserve where we do a lot of our training. And we've got a course lined up for this month, next month, 2 courses in Kenya, mostly tracking programs. Yeah, we're going to head out to Laikipia, where the amazing black leopards are being seen. And we're going to be running a tracking program up there. So we're going to stay in an alternative little camp and spend our days walking, and then do afternoon drives, and hopefully see a glimpse or 2 of that beautiful creature. Yeah, it would be amazing.
And what about Madagascar? Because I know that you were there, and that's got some interesting wildlife there.
Unbelievable. So the wildlife was fascinating, but I went there with a slightly different angle. I went there considering the humans, the people, their skills, the traditions, the tribes, burial practices. I did quite a bit of work before I went to try and understand the wildlife and the culture, but there was just nothing like being there, David. It was absolutely astounding. And we had a phenomenal guide who we will be working with because we're going to be taking trips back there.
Okay.
We focused on tracking. We saw some of the animals and some of the birds, but not with the same intensity as a birding trip or a mammal trip specifically. It was kind of on the side, and we still managed to see and photograph like 22 different lemur species. It was incredible.
Didn't know that many existed.
Yeah, there's like 130 or so species now.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do any of them sing? Can any of them go, I
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
move
yes.
it, move it?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. But not thinking, but they do sing. They do sing. After this discussion, I will WhatsApp you one of the incredible sounds. We were listening to Indries. A troop of Indries came through the trees, led by a massive male. And most of the lemur species are actually matriarchal, so the females normally lead, but this was apparently a male from what we could gather. And he attacked a troop of diadem cephakas, which are a beautiful yellow and brown and white lemur, just amazing. And this guy came flying through the trees, leaping gaps of 10, 12 meters between tree trunks and screaming, but hooting. Does the most incredible calls. It was the creepiest thing. I just imagined, imagine those ancient mariners arriving there thousands of years ago from Southeast Asia or from the African shore, because that's the different parts of Madagascar have different origins and heritages. And imagine them listening to that noise in the forest.
They must have been terrified.
Oh man, I was scared, and I could see the thing. And the one creature, this Indri, was just below on a hill and was just staring at me with these gray-green eyes. And sure, I thought I was in a Vietnam movie or something, with that 1,000-yard stare. Just unbelievable.
Were you waiting for Marlon Brando to pop out of the
I was waiting for him to come out of the water. Oh, no, wait, sorry, no, isn't that Charlie Sheen or someone? Yeah.
Martin Sheen. No, it was
Martin
Apocalypse
Sheen.
Now, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. It was an amazing experience, but that's a whole different discussion. I mean, we want to go back there and we want to highlight the culture. We watched boat makers building dhows using adzes and axes and hand augering every peg hole and splitting pieces. It was just incredible watching these skills, which are probably as they were almost 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. It was just incredible to see.
I'm glad that those skills have been kept and nurtured.
Still there.
Because
still there.
A lot of that stuff. Is it also not in Madagascar where they, at the end of a first year after somebody's died, they resurrect the body and then take the body through the town, showing them the changes that have been made and all that type of thing?
Absolutely. So depending on the tribal group, there's a lot of exhumation that takes place, and it's a ceremony. And from what we understood, it was usually around the 3rd year with the Bezo people.
Right.
And they actually inter their loved ones, their dead loved ones, in the cliff faces in places like Isalu in the national park. They've been doing it for thousands of years. So when the national park was developed, they were allowed to continue with their cultures and their understanding of how they do things. So it all continued. And there's amazing examples there of how national parks and people can coexist. And yes, and then after about year number 3, there's a big celebration. They go and fetch the bones, and the person is brought down, and the bones are washed and cleaned, and they have a 3-day party.
Wow.
Drinking rum, eating rice, slaughtering zebu cattle, just inviting everybody from their village and all their friends and neighbors and relatives. They have a huge humdinger of a party, and then they take the bones nice and clean back up into the mountains, and they entomb them permanently with the rest of their family. But there are variations on this. There are many variations that we learned about.
I should imagine. Lee, we're coming to the end of our chat, and I'd like people to contact you if they're interested, obviously, in one of the courses that you and Dr. K run, to give her a proper title.
Absolutely.
If they want the books, any of the books, I should imagine they're all available, as they used to say back in the day, in good bookshops. They're also available in bad bookshops, available online. Are they available as
I'm pretty
ebooks?
sure. Yeah, you can get them through what is that? I don't even know what it's called. Where you order online and then the books arrive at your house. I don't know, ding dong, those people. I'm not sure how it works.
One of them, Amazon.
They don't deliver where I live.
The book that we've been chatting about and talking a lot of shit about is Droppings, Dung and Scats of Southern African Wildlife. It's by Lee Gutteridge, and it's the fourth in his Track and Sign series. Aside from Feathers, which may come out at some time in the distant or maybe even far distant future, is there anything else planned for sort of the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, we are working really hard on a trailing guide. So how to follow wildlife.
Okay.
It's a step-by-step guide to teach you how to do that if that's what you want to do.
Step by step. Here we go again. Left foot, right foot. Look all around.
Exactly. Yeah, you're quick with those puns, but the only thing I wish we'd done with that dropping book was maybe made it scratch and sniff. That would have been pretty good.
And on that note, Lee, I'm going to say thank you so very much. I don't want to best you now. Thank you so very much for being my guest. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. The books are well worth having in a library, and read them. Don't just put them on a shelf, because this is a proper learning experience. My guest In Conversation With today has been Lee Gutteridge. Lee, once again, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.